Before the storms of life descended upon him, the world knew Cliff Richard as Britain's answer to Elvis Presley. With more than 250 million records sold, he was not merely a star. He was a living monument spanning generations. His legacy is almost unbelievable. 68 top 10 singles, and the only artist alongside Elvis to have charted songs across 6 consecutive decades. For decades, Cliff Richard's image was inseparable from kindness, elegance, and exemplary conduct. He won over audiences not only with his voice, but with the character of a true gentleman, eventually being formally knighted by the Queen of England. In the eyes of the public, Sir Cliff Richard symbolized absolute cleanliness, an artist without blemish in an entertainment world filled with temptation. Yet it was precisely that spotless image that made the shock of 2014 so much more painful and devastating. On an afternoon in August 2014, the world seemed to stop turning for Sir Cliff Richard. While enjoying a peaceful holiday in Portugal, the musical knight found himself living through a nightmare he could never have imagined. In stunned disbelief, he watched police raid his apartment in England, broadcast live on BBC television from a helicopter hovering overhead. What he felt in that moment was not merely surprise, but profound humiliation, his most sacred privacy brutally exposed before millions of viewers worldwide like a cheap action film. The reason for the raid was an anonymous accusation regarding an alleged incident from 1985. For a man who had spent more than half a century building the image of a wholesome gentleman, a symbol of purity and Christian faith, such an accusation was like filthy water thrown directly onto his soul. Though there was no evidence and no conviction, in the eyes of public opinion at the time, the name Cliff Richard had already been stained by toxic suspicion. The emotional pain quickly ravaged the aging artist's body. Severe stress caused alarming weight loss, and the once radiant face became gaunt and exhausted. He developed shingles, a direct consequence of a weakened immune system caused by prolonged anxiety. Even more painful was the feeling that home itself had changed forever. For Cliff, that apartment was no longer a sanctuary. It had become a contaminated crime scene, violated publicly by the media. He bitterly admitted he could never live there again because every corner of the home reminded him of betrayal by those entrusted with justice and journalism. Yet from the ashes of shattered trust, the spirit of a knight rose again. Although the investigation was dropped in 2016 due to a complete lack of evidence, Cliff Richard did not choose silence and wait for the wound to heal. He entered a difficult legal battle against the BBC and the police, not for money, but for the right to defend the dignity of those who had never been formally charged. He wanted to ensure that no one else would ever experience being publicly executed on live television the way he had. It was a fight for justice, for integrity, and for a deeply wounded heart that still refused to fall. To understand the inner strength that helped Cliff Richard survive those storms of dishonor in his later years, we must look back to where he began. A journey that started in comfort but was forged through hardship. Very few fans in Britain know that their legend was actually born in Lucknow, India. In his early years, young Harry Webb lived an almost aristocratic life with servants and spacious surroundings. But that Indian dream collapsed completely in 1947 when the wave of independence erupted, forcing his family to abandon everything and return to Britain. The cultural and economic shock struck the Webb family brutally. From a life of servants and comfort, the family of 6 now had to squeeze into a cramped council house in Essex. Lavish dinners were replaced by harsh reality. Their evening meal was often nothing more than hot tea and bread, sprinkled with sugar to ease hunger. It was in that poverty that Cliff learned the value of restraint and the pride of being poor but respectable, qualities that later became guiding principles throughout his career. His extraordinary musical career also began in a humble and somewhat reluctant way on his father's part. When Cliff was 16, his father gave him his first guitar. Though it was a gift scraped together from the last loose coins in his pocket, and though his father was initially unenthusiastic about this noisy passion, that quiet support laid the first brick of a musical empire. Cliff treasured that guitar like a sacred object, a symbol of love and hope, and turned the first melodies played in that cramped house into motivation to escape poverty. That past taught Cliff Richard one enduring truth. Glory may come and go, but identity and perseverance are things no one can take away. From a boy named Harry Webb surviving on sugar bread, he was now ready to transform himself, carrying a burning ambition to conquer new heights under a name that would soon become legendary. When he entered the entertainment world, Harry Webb quickly realized that to become an icon, he needed a name with the same strength and sharpness as the music he wanted to make. At his manager's suggestion, the gentle-sounding Harry Webb was replaced by Cliff Richard, a name evoking the strength of cliffs and masculine confidence. This was not merely a name change, but a complete rebirth to create Britain's first true rock and roll star. In 1958, the song Move It exploded onto the scene and shook the British music industry awake from its sleepy ballads. With pounding rhythm, cutting electric guitar, and an energetic stage presence, Move It was recognized by critics as the first authentic rock and roll song ever produced in Britain. Cliff Richard did not simply import the genre from America. He localized it and turned it into a source of pride for British youth at the time. He was the trailblazer who proved that Britain, too, could create musical icons strong enough to stand alongside legends from across the ocean. From that moment on, Cliff Richard's career became a string of unprecedented achievements. He was not a one-hit wonder, but an astonishingly enduring force. For more than 60 years, he continuously dominated the charts, from youthful, energetic songs to Christmas hymns that became part of family tradition. Cliff possessed a rare natural gift for reinventing himself without ever losing his distinct identity, a blend of rock and roll rebellion with the elegance of a true gentleman. This lasting success turned Cliff Richard into a monument, an artist whose presence on the charts felt inevitable across generations. Yet behind the dazzling spotlight and endless applause, Cliff chose a very different path in his personal life, a choice that made him the master bachelor. In the eyes of the public, but also brought moments of quiet reflection when the stage lights faded. For more than half a century under the spotlight, Cliff Richard was known as the master bachelor of world music. The public grew accustomed to the image of a refined gentleman always alone, but few understood that his solitude was not entirely personal preference. It was a form of sacrifice for both faith and career. He chose not to marry, not to have children, in order to devote himself fully to Christianity and give absolute priority to endless tours. For Cliff, music and faith were the most loyal life partners, but that did not mean his heart had never known love. In truth, there was only one woman who ever made this resilient artist confess a lasting regret, the late singer Olivia Newton-John. Cliff once admitted that he deeply loved Olivia when they were both young. However, hesitation and a rapidly rising career caused him to delay, and the opportunity slipped through his fingers when she became engaged to someone else. That unfinished love left a silent scar, a reminder of what he had sacrificed in exchange for the crown of legend. Cliff Richard's loneliness was most visible after each triumphant performance. While tens of thousands of fans cheered his name and praised him like a saint, the moment he stepped into a silent hotel room or returned to an empty house, the emptiness would rush back like a tide. He confessed that not having a small family beside him, not hearing the laughter of children to share the joy after the applause, was sometimes a price far greater than he had ever imagined. Though he always appeared strong and composed, the night carried quiet sorrows deep within. He spent his life pleasing audiences and preserving a flawless image, but the cost of perfection was walking toward the sunset without a loving hand to hold. And as age began to weigh on his shoulders, new challenges with health would once again test the perseverance of this lifelong bachelor. As he entered his 8th decade of life, Sir Cliff Richard faced yet another cruel trial of fate. In 2024, during a routine medical examination for insurance renewal, doctors delivered news that shook the hearts of his fans. He had prostate cancer. For a man who had spent his life preserving his health and clean image, the diagnosis felt like another blow after the emotional wounds of 2014. Yet rather than collapse or seek sympathy from the media, Cliff chose to face the illness with quiet pride. He underwent treatment privately, battling pain and the exhaustion of old age with the same faith and optimism that had sustained him all his life. And like a miracle granted to a steadfast knight, by the end of 2025, he was officially declared cancer-free. Another resounding victory in a life filled with trials and triumphs. Now, at 85, the marks of time are clearly etched across the face of the legend. His body has grown more tired, his steps less graceful, and at times he needs assistance. His speaking voice in everyday conversation has softened. Yet something miraculous still happens whenever he steps onto a stage. The moment the spotlight shines and the first notes begin, Sir Cliff Richard seems reborn. Every trace of fatigue, every scar of illness appears to vanish. His voice remains strong, powerful, and full of emotion, as if drawn from the final reserves of a heart that has never stopped loving music. Audiences do not come merely to hear him sing. They come to witness a symbol of immortality, a man who refuses to let age or sickness define his limits. In rare recent interviews, Cliff Richard revealed a deeply human philosophy about the final chapter of his career. He firmly rejects the word retirement. To him, the term feels like a permanent full stop, a surrender to time. Instead, he prefers the word stopping. It is a pause, a necessary silence in which to reflect on the road behind him and save strength for what truly matters. He said, "I'm not retiring, I'm just stopping for a while. I want to leave the door open so that if one day my heart still stirs and the audience still calls, I'll be there again, under those lights." The journey of Sir Cliff Richard today is a sad yet heroic love song. Returning from brilliant stages, he still faces silent rooms, still leaves the lights on through the night to chase away the fear of loneliness. But now, within that silence, there is peace, the serenity of a man who has weathered every storm. He lives each day as a gift, cherishing every breath and every note of music. His story is not only about music, but about a soul of steel wrapped in velvet. A man who chose to live and sacrifice for what he believed in, and who, in the twilight of life, still shines like a star that never fades from the sky of art. Behind the glory of a star stands a solitary man of extraordinary strength. Thank you for joining us to better understand the quiet, hidden struggles of Sir Cliff Richard. If you admire his voice and resilience, please give this video a like and subscribe to support the channel. More untold stories about music icons will be revealed in future videos. Wishing you a peaceful day.